So I've just started writing a book, and the first chapter is about growing early and late potatoes, well, and main crop potatoes as well. But yeah, today I thought I'd show you what I'm doing with super early new potatoes, and also talk about my late new potatoes, and then also experiments that I'm doing with early baking potatoes. And I'll go into some of these in more detail in subsequent videos, but basically what I recommend is that you start your super early new potatoes now. I've started these 2 weeks, 10 days actually, 10 days ago, so that plant is 10 days old, just so I can show you the amount of growth that you can get when you start a potato indoors where it's nice and warm. And then I just put this on the edge of my grow lights, and you know, to give it a decent amount of light. It's not a huge amount of light, it's about 2/3 the intensity actually underneath the grow lights, but this is, you know, set on the offset, and I think that's fine. You know, they're big leaf plants, it's getting plenty of light, so this plant is off to a really good start. And I'm going to pop it into this, which is, I think it's a 20 or a 25 litre container, I'm not absolutely sure. So let's just jump back in time for a minute. So these are my home saved seed potatoes. Not exactly sure when I harvested these, I think it was probably July, and they've just been sitting in this egg box since then, and I started chitting them in December sometime, and they were already a bit leggy, which is slightly unfortunate but not a disaster. So I just put about this much compost in, settle the potato in there, so like that, and then just cover it over. And it's not going to take very long, about 4 or 5 days, and then that will break surface. And that's the beauty of chitting, really, is that it gives you, you know that your potato is going to start growing immediately, and that allows you to get all your timings right. And that, you know, that's really useful when you're doing things really early and you've got limited space under grow lights and all that sort of thing. It's a bit of a production line, because I'm doing 4 of these 2 litre containers every 2 weeks, and 4 containers just fit in one drip tray, and that drip tray just fits nicely under the grow lights, etc. So I need to know everything's going to come at exactly the right time and be nice and predictable. And I've put some actual potato fertilizer in there, and normally I just use blood, fish and bone, but I happened to get this, and so I thought, well, I'll give this a try. So the first thing is you just got to try and get your potato out of its pot. Be careful with this, but they're quite tough plants, so that you can see they're really excellent growth for 10 days. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So let's try and get that righted and pop that in there, and I'll get this one. Now, this one doesn't look quite so well developed. I'm just going to put that down there so it doesn't fall off. But hopefully this one will come out as well. Now these are actually home saved seed potatoes as well. Well, nothing special about them, they're just home saved potatoes from last year, and that allowed me to start chitting them in December. So they were really well chitted when they went into those pots. That's the size of pot I'm using, 2 litres. I didn't put any fertiliser in those. So now I'm just going to fill these up and cover, well, fill this pot up right to the top, so there'll still be a little bit of leaf growth breaking through. And so there we go, and that's the beauty of this technique. We've basically got what you might expect to see in April, maybe the middle of April, if you just did first earlies, But of course we're actually in the middle of January and the plants look really great. Now these are going to go back on the edge of the grow lights now for another few weeks, and then they're going to go into the polytunnel in February, and you have to keep your fleece handy. So these will not survive a frost. A single layer of fleece isn't enough. You need a double layer of fleece or a thick fleece blanket or some hessian cloth or something like that, but you know, quite a substantial amount of protection. But that needs to come off during the day, so you only want that on at night, and then during the day you want maximum amount of sun, so they need to be in a sunny spot in your polytunnel or your greenhouse or your conservatory or wherever. So as I said, I've started these a couple of weeks early, but hopefully this is what yours would look like the beginning of February. And if you can keep them indoors until the middle of February, then that's even better. You know, if you can keep them indoors until March, even better, sort of thing, provided they're getting enough light. You don't want them too leggy. So that is basically super early new potatoes. And as I said, I like doing Swift for that purpose. Now, if you were doing early baking potatoes, you'd want a bigger container. You will still want 2 of these in each pot, and a 35 litre container probably. But I would start those later, because early baking potatoes need a lot, and by early baking potatoes basically I'm talking about the size of the potato. So I think Charlottes make a really great early baking potato. You want them, you know, big baking potato size, this sort of size, and in order to grow something to that amount of size you need a lot of heat and light. I'm not exactly sure on the balance of those two things. I think light is perhaps more important than heat, provided you can keep them above freezing all the time. So I would start those, the earliest ones, in the middle of February, but more likely I would start them in March. But I'm actually going to try, because I've got 4 of these, so I'm actually going to try and get early baking potatoes even earlier than that. But I'm going to grow with them for quite a long time in the conservatory, in the spillover light from the grow lights, basically until I need that space for tomatoes and peppers. So we'll see how they go. And that is basically it. We will be harvesting these potatoes that I've just planted now, probably the beginning of April. If you were doing them, starting them today, then, and we're actually, what's the date? The 14th of January. If you were starting them now, you'd be harvesting them in the middle of April. And the yield is not huge, so I definitely wouldn't encourage you to grow like 8 tubs of them. You know, don't start them all at the same time and fill your polytunnel up with loads and loads of early potatoes in February. That makes no sense, because the later you leave them, the bigger the harvest. So it's much better to start them, I think, every week or every 2 weeks. I start them every 2 weeks. And by doing that, you're maximising the harvest in late April and early May. If you just start them all now, the plants will all die by the end of April, and then, you know, as I said, you'll get a relatively meagre harvest from them. So harvest wise, we hope to get about 2 or 3 meals per container, and that's, say, 2 or 3 meals a week. We do 2 containers every 2 weeks, so that's about it. So I do encourage you to take a look at the link in the description and give me some feedback on the chapter of the book on growing early, late and main crop potatoes. And there will be lots more chapters of the book like this, and they're all the same basically. They're all about growing techniques to extend the season, so that you've got a rich abundance of all the different types of fruit and veg that are practical to grow in an extended season fashion. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that quick video. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.